Namaste learners. I am Basavaraj Bilgi, Assistant Professor of English GFGC Argatti. Today we will discuss Imagination and Fancy by S.T. Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was a romantic poet of 19th century England. He was a literary critic who wrote a book called Biographia Literaria in the year 1817, in which he brings about his concept of writing poetry and his concept of imagination and his concept of fancy. He was a philosopher. He was the founder of Romantic period in England. He was member of the Lake Poets. There was a district called Lake, and there were three important poets living in Lake district who are called as Lake Poets. They are William Wordsworth, one of the greatest writers of 19th century Romantic period, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and another one, Robert Southey. These three people were called as Lake Poets in 19th century England. The concept of imagination and fancy is discussed in S.T. Coleridge's Biographia Literaria, which was written in 1817. The full title of the book is Biographical Sketches of My Literary Life and Opinions. The fourth chapter and chapter number 13 are important because S.T. Coleridge discusses about the imagination and fancy in these two chapters of the book. First, we will see the meaning of imagination and fancy. The term fancy is derived from the Greek word phantasia, which means I appear. The term imagination is derived from the Latin term imagination, which means to create. In 18th century, fancy was considered to be more creative than imagination, and the writers were giving more importance or of the opinion that fancy is more creative than imagination. Thus, they were giving more importance to fancy. Even Wordsworth, in his preface to 1815 poems, gives his views about imagination. He calls it capricious, Capricious. Capricious means sudden change. And evanescent means soon fading away. Wordsworth, being a great poet, gave more importance to fancy than imagination, and he calls imagination as capricious, which means sudden change, and evanescent, which means soon fading away. But Coleridge tells that fancy and imagination are not two names with one meaning. Many of the 18th century people or writers believed that both the meaning of both the words fancy and imagination is same. They believed, but it was S.T. Coleridge for the first time tells to the people that both of them are not two names with one meaning, but they differ in meaning. S.T. Coleridge propagates in his book Biographia Literaria. In chapter 3 of Biographia Literaria, S.T. Coleridge discusses about the faculty of fancy. He says, imagination and fancy differ in kind and nature. First, he tries to define imagination and fancy because many of the writers believed that both of them are same. But he says they differ in kind as well as their nature. He says imagination is creative, fancy is common possession of man and is not creative. This is what S.T. Coleridge says. He says fancy is a mechanical process which receives the elementary images which come to it ready made. He says fancy can only receive basic images. It cannot give a shape to the image which it has received. And he says fancy can only work when the images are ready made, but it cannot create its own image, but it cannot create its own shape. S.T. Coleridge says fancy doesn't alter these things, but it reassembles them into a different order from that in which it was received. Fancy only reassembles the images which it has received, but it cannot give a different shape, a new shape to the images which it has received. He says fancy only combines what it perceives into beautiful shapes, but does not fuse or unify. Fancy can bring together different images, but it cannot give a different shape, or it cannot unify different shapes into one final shape. Fancy is a kind of memory. He says there is no difference between human memory and fancy. Fancy arbitrarily brings together images, and even our memory can also bring together images. And even when brought together, these images continue to retain their separate and individual properties. He says, even when different images are brought together, they are not given a different shape. They retain their originality. They retain their former shape. They are not changed. They are not given a new form. They are not given a new shape by fancy. These images receive no coloring or modification from the mind. When fancy is at work, the images which we receive are not given a different color. Color means variety, or they are not modified into a different shape. He says fancy is the aggregative and associative power. Aggregate means sum of total. Associative means binary operations. Fancy can only bring about aggregative images, and it has only associative power. Associative power means operating power, but it cannot give life to a different image, he says. However, Wordsworth argued that to aggregate and to associate, to evoke and to combine belong as well to imagination as to the fancy. Here, Wordsworth is counterattacking S.T. Coleridge, wherein he defends fancy by telling S.T. Coleridge that even imagination also aggregates, associates, evokes, and combines different images. And he asks a question to S.T. Coleridge to clarify how can you divide or define imagination differently from fancy. Coleridge explained to William Wordsworth, he says, aggregating or collecting is beneath the dignity of imagination because it not necessarily an act of uniting. There is a counterattacking by S.T. Coleridge, wherein he says to Wordsworth that aggregating is collecting, and collecting is very basic work which doesn't unite different images into one final image, is the answer given by S.T. Coleridge to William Wordsworth. The materials have to be assembled before imagination can get to work. S.T. Coleridge says that the materials have to be assembled, they have to be brought together, and they must be put in order before the imagination can get to work. Thus, fancy is inferior to imagination, he says. Fancy has to do this act of collecting, so fancy presupposes imagination. According to S.T. Coleridge, fancy only can collect different images, thus fancy is inferior to imagination. And he says you cannot compare fancy with imagination, and he says that there is lot of difference between fancy and imagination. In chapter 13 of Biographia Literaria, S.T. Coleridge discusses about imagination or his concept of imagination. According to S.T. Coleridge, imagination is a spontaneous and original act of creation. He says there should not be any external force. If there is external force, we cannot call it imagination, S.T. Coleridge says. The power of creation or the act of creation should come spontaneously, as in Kubla Khan, the old man with beard looking at the beautiful pulse and singing a song. That's how a poem should come to the poet. And here we can also mention William Wordsworth's definition of poetry, which runs like this: poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings that are recollected in tranquility. In that line, Coleridge defines imagination and says that it is a spontaneous faculty. There should not be any external force. There should not be a thing called force, outside force. And Coleridge breaks imagination still further into primary and secondary imagination. Primary imagination, according to S.T. Coleridge, is the faculty by which we perceive the world around us. All the we the common people perceive the world around us. We are able to recognize a tree, we are able to recognize an animal, we are able to recognize a river, we are able to recognize a bird. That's what he calls primary imagination. And he says the primary imagination is universal and possessed by all. He says all the human beings on earth possess primary imagination. Thus, it is a universal faculty. All the human beings on earth have primary imagination. That is the reason why we are able to recognize tree, river, animal, birds, hills, and many other things. And he says, imagination or primary imagination is merely the power of receiving impressions of the external through our senses. He says, senses are at work in primary imagination. We are able to feel a thing with the sense of touch. We are able to find the taste of a particular thing by the sense of taste. That's where our mind receives impressions through our senses. Without senses, we cannot recognize the things, the external things. It perceives objects both in their parts and as a whole. He says, primary imagination can perceive, can understand the things in different parts as well whole. We are able to recognize fruit from a tree. We are able to recognize the flower on the tree. At the same time, we are able to recognize the whole tree also. That's where primary imagination is at work. It is an involuntary act of the mind. For primary imagination, we need not to put any effort. We understand that there is a tree by common understanding. We need not to put more efforts. We can say that I am hungry because our sense, my sense alerts me. That's where primary imagination is at work. The human mind receives impressions and sensation from outside world unconsciously. He says the human mind is always at work and it receives impressions through our senses, and it receives all the impressions unconsciously. We are not conscious when we are eating food. We feel the thirst unconsciously. And he says involuntarily it imposes some sort of order on those impressions and reduces them to size and shape, so that the mind is able to form a clear image of the world outside. S.T. Coleridge says primary imagination gives a particular size to an external thing as well as shape. This is how our mind is able to form a clear picture, clear image of the outside world. It is in this way that clear and coherent perception becomes possible. Because our mind works with primary imagination, we are able to perceive the outside world. Coleridge describes primary imagination as the mysterious power. He says primary imagination is mysterious power. Mysterious because it guides our mind to perceive the world outside. It understands the world outside through our senses. That's why it is mysterious power. He says primary imagination extracts hidden ideas and meanings from objective data. He says that primary imagination brings out the hidden ideas of human mind. It can bring out the hidden ideas but cannot give a unity, cannot unify those ideas into a whole object. S.T. Coleridge says. Chapter 13 of Biographia Literaria. Is continued, and he also discusses about the secondary imagination. He says the secondary imagination makes artistic creation possible. It is because of secondary imagination we can create something that can be called art. He says secondary imagination requires an effort of the will and conscious effort. We cannot write in unconscious state of mind. And he also says we need to put some effort. Secondary imagination works upon what is pursued by the primary imagination. He says primary imagination acts as raw material to the secondary imagination. And he says raw materials are the sensations and impressions supplied to it by the primary imagination. We cannot say that I have a lot of secondary imagination without having primary imagination. Both work in collaboration. The secondary imagination selects and orders the raw materials and reshapes and remodels it into objects of beauty. The secondary imagination is able to select and prepare them orderly, prepare the raw materials orderly, and it can give a different shape and it can remodel the raw material into a beautiful thing. He says secondary imagination is asemplastic. Asemplastic means molding into one or unifying or bringing together, and it dissolves. Dissolves means to get form of liquid or mix up with another thing. Secondary imagination can mix two different images into one to give a beautiful shape. Diffuses means spread over a large area or mingle with another substance very easily. Only because of secondary imagination a particular image can mingle with another image easily and create a different image. And dissipates. Dissipate means disappear or to break up and form another object, to lose its original shape. Only through secondary imagination a particular image will be able to lose its original shape to get a new shape in order to create. The secondary imagination is at the root of all poetic activity. S.T. Coleridge acknowledges that all the artistic creativity or poetic activity is the outcome of secondary imagination. Secondary imagination is the power which reveals itself in the balance or reconciliation of opposite and discordant qualities, and Coleridge calls it a magical synthetic power. He says secondary imagination is the reconciliation of two opposite images. Two opposite images are brought together and are given a new shape, new form. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ರೂಪ ಅಂತಂತೀವಿ. Discordant qualities, the images of different qualities are brought together and given a new unifying quality by secondary imagination. Secondary imagination fuses, F-U-S-E, fuse means bring together various faculties of the soul. He says the secondary imagination works with soul, subjective with objective. Secondary imagination is both subjective as well objective. The human mind with external nature, the spiritual with the physical or material. The secondary imagination works with our soul, our mind, external nature, or our spiritual power, and with physical world as well as material world. To conclude, the primary and secondary imagination do not differ from each other in kind. The difference is only of degree. The secondary imagination is more active, more conscious, and more voluntary than the primary one. S.T. Coleridge says that the people who possess the secondary imagination are very creative, are very much imaginative, and can give a different image or different form, different shape to a image, whereas the people with primary imagination may not be or cannot be great writers, he says. Thank you very much. This is the image of goddess of imagination. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel Basavaraj Belgi to get more videos on different things of English literature. Thank you very much.